A Marine in a crowded coastal town grows restless as the day bleeds into night and the streets empty, leaving only flickering streetlights and the distant hum of traffic. He walks with purpose, though his mind is a storm of anger and frustration. The kind that builds slowly over weeks and months, unnoticed by most people around him. The woman he spots is walking alone near the edge of the harbor. Her pace slow and deliberate, her posture confident but not threatening. She carries herself like someone used to being watched but never afraid. He does not see the years etched into her frame, the countless hours of training, the discipline that runs through her veins like cold steel. He only sees a solitary target, a person alone who could be intimidated, who might flinch under the weight of his presence. He quickens his pace, letting his shadows stretch across the cracked pavement, hoping she notices him, hoping fear shows in her eyes. He rehearses the words he wants to say. The threat he imagines will bend her to his will. Die now, he mutters under his breath, testing the sound like a weapon. He does not realize that she notices him. To her senses, sharpened by decades of living in environments where danger is constant, she does not panic. She does not run. She simply adjusts her steps to remain aware of every detail. The slight twitch of his shoulder, the clenching of his fists, the rhythm of his breathing, and the way his eyes flicker with impatience and aggression as he comes closer. He tries to appear larger, to loom over her in his mind. This will break her in seconds, but in reality, the street is empty enough that she has room to maneuver and time to respond. The Marine steps into a patch of light, and for the first time he thinks he sees fear in her eyes, but it is a trick of the shadows, a reflection of his own expectation, a mirror of his desire to dominate. She smiles faintly to herself because she understands he is blind to the storm beneath her calm exterior. She feels his energy like a wave ready to crash, and she prepares to ride it. She knows how to turn it against him without anyone else knowing, without the slightest gesture being wasted. He takes another step and raises his voice just enough for a chilling die now to escape his lips. He expects a scream or a flinch, but instead, he gets a slow, measured blink and a tilt of her head. As if she is studying a puzzle, she matches his intensity with quiet patience, the kind born from years of training where patience is the weapon that decides life and death scenarios. She does not panic, she does not hesitate, she allows him to believe he holds the upper hand while she calculates his next move, observing the shift in his weight, the tightening of his jaw, the subtle twitch in his left hand, all the tiny indicators that reveal how predictable his aggression is. He lunges slightly to test her reaction, and she steps back with the grace of someone who has moved in and out of danger more times then she can count, her body relaxed, her mind alert. She is reading him like a book whose pages are written in tension and misplaced confidence. Every motion he makes is catalogued, every intention noted. She begins to plan how to redirect his force. Without revealing her full capacity, she imagines the flow of his movement like water hitting rocks, and she visualizes the sequence of steps that will disarm him with minimal effort. Her mind is a battlefield, and she is already winning the fight. He does not suspect a thing, because he has never faced someone trained to anticipate threats before, someone who has spent decades learning to control fear and harness it. As strength, the wind picks up from the harbor, carrying the scent of salt and oil, and it whispers across the empty street like a warning. The Marine shivers slightly and misinterprets it as fear in her. The woman senses his overconfidence and decides to let him think the night is on his side. She adjusts her breathing, slowing it to a rhythm that calms her mind while amplifying his tension. He paces slightly, circling as if stalking prey, unaware that his prey is already the predator in disguise. She allows him to speak more words to himself, muttering, "Die now," louder. Each time hoping to elicit a reaction that never comes. She maintains the balance of her body, shifting weight from one foot to the other, lightly on the balls of her feet, ready to pivot or retreat if necessary. She lets him believe he controls the Situation: while she gathers data with every passing second, he tries to scare her by raising his hands, pretending to take a more threatening stance. He steps closer, expecting a flinch. He expects panic, but she remains composed. She narrows her eyes. Slightly not in fear, but in focus, she studies his posture, his footwork, the angle of his approach, the speed of his breathing. He has no idea that every movement he makes is being processed in her mind. She is calculating the exact moment to act, the precise way to turn his aggression against him without causing harm to herself or anyone else. She has rehearsed countless scenarios like this one in training, and her body knows what to do before her mind even makes the decision. The shadows from the streetlights cast long shapes across the pavement, and she uses them to her advantage, moving slightly to keep him guessing his own shadow, now confusing him, making him feel like there is more than one presence on the street. She tilts her head, listening to the faintest sounds: the scrape of shoes on concrete, the distant splash of water against the docks, the echo of his own voice in the empty street, each one giving her subtle information about his state of mind. She knows that he is impatient. He wants control. He wants to end this confrontation quickly. But he does not realize that the more he pushes, the more predictable he becomes. She thinks back to years in the Navy SEALs. 2 moments of extreme danger were split-second decisions, determined outcomes. She remembers the training drills, the simulated attacks, the endless hours of practicing control and patience. She remembers the sense of calm that comes from mastery, and she channels that into her stance, into her breathing, into the way she holds herself on the street now. Her calm is not a lack of emotion. It is a weapon. It is a signal to the Marine that the environment is not something he can dominate without knowing the rules of engagement. As the Marine mutters, "Die now," again, the woman finally allows the faintest shift in her body, a slight lean to one side, a minor step back, seemingly insignificant but full of intention. She tests his reaction. His confidence wavers slightly as he tries to anticipate her next move. She continues this delicate dance, letting him feel powerful while she remains several moves ahead. In her mind, she visualizes how this will end, visualizes the moment when his aggression is neutralized and she can walk away without anyone else even realizing how close danger came. She smiles faintly to herself, knowing that his arrogance blinds him too. The truth that he is dealing with someone who has survived far greater threats than him. The night grows colder as the wind sweeps along the waterfront. The Marine shivers, not from the cold, but from the growing frustration of his failed intimidation attempts. He takes another step forward, whispering, "Die now," one last time, hoping this time she will react. She does not. She keeps her eyes locked on his, waiting for the precise instant when his balance is compromised enough for her to act. She senses that he underestimates her because he judges her by appearance. He does not see the decades of discipline, the hundreds of missions, the countless exercises that have conditioned her body and mind to respond with deadly precision under pressure. He is blind to the fact that he is walking into a trap crafted by someone who understands human behavior better than he could imagine. The woman senses the Marine closing the distance, and her heart does not race. Instead, her mind sharpens like a blade, ready to strike. She notices the subtle twitch in his shoulder, the way his weight shifts from one foot to the other, the faint rise and fall of his chest as he breathes faster than he realizes, every detail a clue to his intent. She moves slowly, adjusting her position with careful precision, letting him think he is controlling the encounter, letting him believe he has the upper hand, while in reality she is mapping his weaknesses, memorizing the angles of his approach, the pressure points in his stance, and the way his mind jumps from threat to threat. Like an animal cornered in a cage, he takes another step forward, whispering, "Die now," again, his voice trembling slightly with frustration. She does not flinch, she does not react. She simply watches him like a hawk circling prey, her body relaxed, yet primed for action, her training as a Navy SEAL veteran Kicks in without hesitation. She visualizes the moment when he lunges the way his aggression will carry him forward, and the exact moment she will pivot, redirect, and neutralize. The threat, she can feel his tension radiating outward like heat from a fire. He is unaware that his own energy is being read, calculated, and anticipated. Wind rustles through the nearby docks, carrying the smell of salt and tar. It brushes against her face, and she lets it sharpen. Her awareness, she hears the faint creak of metal beneath his boots, the subtle scrape of his jeans against concrete, the shallow exhale of breath. He cannot control all of it. Informing her decisions, she steps slightly to the side, letting him advance into an imaginary trap. Her movements, almost imperceptible yet full of intent, she is creating space to maneuver, to redirect force, to neutralize aggression, and every step he takes unknowingly brings him closer to the edge of control. He suddenly shouts, "Die now," louder. This time, trying to assert dominance, he lunges forward slightly, his hand raised as if ready to strike. She does not flinch, she does not scream, she does not hesitate. She watches the mechanics of his attack like an observer in a simulation. His momentum is predictable, his focus on intimidation, leaving gaps in his defense, and she begins the slow, calculated steps to exploit them. She shifts her weight back onto her heels, keeping her balance, centered her body ready to pivot, her hands ready to block or redirect without revealing the full measure of her strength. Street is empty. The only witnesses are shadows cast by the flickering lights across cracked pavement, and her mind scans for every potential hazard, every environmental detail. She notes the uneven surfaces, the puddles of water reflecting the dim glow of street lamps, the metal railing along the harbor edge, each one a factor in how the confrontation could evolve. She uses them to plan multiple contingencies in milliseconds, her mind racing faster than the Marine can anticipate. She is calm, her body a coiled spring ready to act at the precise moment he takes another step and swings his arm forward, his confidence still inflated by her lack of reaction. He believes he has surprised her. He believes he has seized control, and she uses his overconfidence against him, letting him commit to the movement before making her move. She pivots slightly, dropping her weight and redirecting the force of his momentum into a controlled motion. Her hands brush against his arm, guiding him off balance without allowing him to hit her. She feels his shock as his body realizes resistance for the first time. He stumbles, but she does not press the attack. She maintains control, letting him feel the dissonance between expectation and reality. Tries again, this time faster, more desperate, muttering, "Die now," repeatedly, and taking a step closer, she reads his mind through his movements, understanding the desperation fueling his aggression, and calculates the trajectory of his next lunge. She shifts her stance slightly, bending her knees, preparing to absorb and redirect his force. She visualizes the sequence, step by step, the pivot, the balance, the point where his center of gravity becomes unstable, the moment she can apply leverage without excessive force, yet with maximum control. Every detail stored in muscle memory and honed by years of training, the Marine becomes frantic, muttering louder, swinging his arms unpredictably, but each movement betrays him, revealing more about his weaknesses. She anticipates each strike before it happens, seeing the angles before they exist, calculating how his momentum will carry him, and she adjusts accordingly, her feet barely making a sound on the concrete, yet always in the correct position to respond. She moves like water flowing around a rock, his aggression fueling the precision of her response. She is both calm and hyper-aware, each sense alive, noting temperature changes, the faintest sound, the vibrations in the ground beneath their feet. He lunges again with a mix of anger and fear. She steps aside, letting him commit fully to the movement. His momentum carries him slightly off balance. She does not grab him, does not strike. She simply allows physics to do part of the work, redirecting him away from her center and towards a safe, controlled position. She lets him feel resistance. He feels the unexpected control in her hands, her grip. And her movement, he struggles briefly before realizing he cannot overpower her. He mutters, "Die now," one last time, but the words are trembling and weak, the authority he thought he held, slipping through his fingers like sand. He looks into her eyes, and finally notices the calm steel inside them, the patience and discipline he could never have imagined. The harbor lights glint off the water, reflecting across his face, and she uses the moment to maintain psychological control, letting him understand that she is not afraid. She is fully aware and fully capable. The air is thick with tension, and she does not break it. Instead, she allows it to intensify, to make him realize that aggression is not dominance. She shifts slightly, guiding his body gently to the ground without causing harm, letting him stumble into a position where he can no longer threaten her. She maintains her stance, ready for any sudden reversal, watching every micro-movement, aware of every detail of his body language. He begins to breathe heavily, panic replacing confidence, muttering, "Die now," barely audible. Now he realizes that this is not an easy target. This is someone trained for decades in combat tactics, in restraint, in awareness, in control. He is finally seeing what he underestimated for so long, and she uses the moment to let him understand subtly, without words, that the situation is beyond his ability to command, that every threat he issues only demonstrates his vulnerability. She remains calm, her gaze unwavering, her body relaxed but ready. Her presence alone is enough to dominate the space and neutralize the danger. Night deepens and the wind from the harbor grows colder, but her focus does not waver. She continues to anticipate every micro-movement, every twitch, every misstep. She does not strike, she does not yell, she simply lets him exhaust himself against her calm. The Marine finally stops struggling, realizing his own weakness and the futility of the aggression that led him here. She steps slightly closer, ready to immobilize fully if necessary. But allowing him the dignity of surrender, she keeps her movements fluid and controlled, every inch of her body ready to respond to the slightest threat. She has become the observer and the arbiter, the one in command of the encounter, while he is left bewildered, unable to understand how he was defeated without a fight. The Marine staggers backward, his eyes wide with shock, disbelief, and fear, as he finally realizes the woman he tried to intimidate is far more capable than he could have imagined. Every step he takes is tentative, as if testing whether she will strike, and she does not move aggressively. She simply holds her stance, her gaze steady, her body relaxed, yet ready for any sudden motion. She lets him feel the weight of his mistake, the consequences of underestimating someone trained in the Navy SEALs for 25 years. Every muscle in her body is primed, her mind calculating every possibility, every escape route, every potential threat, and she knows exactly when to act. He swings his fists again, muttering, "Die now," one last time, but his movements are clumsy. Uncoordinated desperation driving him rather than skill or strength. She pivots slightly, letting his own momentum carry him forward, and then she intercepts with the precision of someone who has performed thousands of maneuvers before her. Hand presses against his chest, guiding him off balance without hitting him. She shifts her weight and redirects his force toward the pavement. He stumbles, almost falls, but she holds him steady, just enough to control him without causing injury. Every motion smooth, deliberate, controlled, like a dance practiced over decades. Marine gasps for breath, his confidence shattered, his arrogance stripped away layer by layer. He looks into her eyes, finally seeing the calm discipline, the years of training, the mastery over fear and aggression that she possesses. He realizes too late that the die now threat was meaningless against someone who understands control and patience as weapons. She maintains her composure, her every movement economical, efficient, perfect timing, and he has no clue how to respond to someone whose reaction is always one step ahead. She steps closer, her presence commanding the space. She does not need to strike to assert dominance. She lets him feel powerless through the subtlety of her control, through the quiet Authority in her stance, he stumbles slightly, trying to regain footing and balance. But she guides him effortlessly. Redirecting him toward a safe position, she allows him to understand that his aggression cannot succeed, that he has underestimated her completely, and the reality of facing a 25-year Navy SEAL veteran becomes undeniable. His voice falters. His threats cease, his energy depleted by his own failed attempts to assert power finally. She holds him immobilized, just enough to prevent further danger. Her grip controlled, her movements precise, and she allows him to process the lesson silently. He realizes that his threats are futile, that confrontation is not about shouting or intimidation, but about awareness, control, and mastery over oneself. She lets him breathe, lets him recover, while maintaining complete authority over the encounter. The night air swirls around them, carrying the sounds of water against the docks. The distant hum of traffic, the tension still palpable, but now shifted to a quiet acknowledgement of her capability and his misjudgment. With a final step, she releases him, guiding him away from her presence, ensuring safety for both, and walks back down the empty street alone, her calm unshaken, her training proven in the quiet aftermath of confrontation. She moves like someone who has already won without a fight, and the Marine is left staring after her, understanding fully that he faced not just a woman, but a force shaped by decades of discipline, courage, and unwavering focus.